Of course, whenever we come on, we always give disclaimers. Don't mind my mom hair from yesterday from the boys' birthday party, which was a super success. So I apologize. I had to switch the training until today, but definitely needed to give my full attention to the party yesterday because I thought I could swing it. And then as 9 o'clock was approaching, I was just like, this is not going to happen. There's no way I can walk away from all the cooking we had to do. We still had a couple things to decorate. I had a vendor or two show up, so I had to deal with them. So there was no way that I could have done this training yesterday and gave y'all my full attention. I would have totally rushed it. Oh, thanks, girl. But yeah, so definitely wanted to make sure I gave y'all my full attention and give you as much information about media kits as I could, because I do get this question a lot about what is a media kit, why do you need it, how do you make one, what do you include, things like that. So we're going to go over that today, chat a little bit about it. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. Or if you have any feedback yourself, feel free to jump in and join the conversation. Today, we're going to talk about media kits and the best tips to create one. And but first, let's talk about what is a media kit. So a media kit is basically a social media, or I would just say social in general, social resume that highlights your platform's performance. So like statistics or analytics, anything about the profile of your platform that you want to talk about. You can talk about your bio, your services, description of your website, if you have a blog, and of course all the media platforms that you want to include. And then you also want to talk about why it would benefit the other person to work with you, because clearly you know why it would benefit you to work with them. So for example, if I wanted to, I'm just gonna make this up, if I wanted to attract Target, and totally making this up, if I wanted to attract Target, obviously I know why I would benefit from collaborating with Target, because I know what they could do for me being on their platform. Especially, the goal is always try to get a paid partnership. So you know why it would benefit you. So your media kit is really explaining to them why it would benefit them to join you. So if we really think about it in the professional world, if you think about the resume that you would give an employer that you're interested in, right? You would highlight all the great things about yourself, what makes you attractive, what are some skills that you may have, and then of course you're gonna highlight your history, right? Your previous work history. But when you do that, I hate to say this, but you're really going to only include the companies that you had a really good relationship with, right? So you're not going to, if you were at a summer job for a month that had no true value to you, just say, oh, I was, a babysitter or a part-time nanny for this family for a month, and you really can't find a way to flip it to make it benefit that it relates to the people that you're trying to talk to, you probably won't add it, right? You'll add the bigger career choices that you decide to have. So same thing with a media kit. I may be on many different platforms, but only one or two of them really would benefit or is really worth highlighting to talk to someone else. So I wouldn't talk about, obviously I'm not on Twitter, but I just got on TikTok. So it really wouldn't benefit me to talk about TikTok, because it's not like I've blown up and gone viral. It's not like I'm really talking about my business on there. I've literally been there less than 30 days. So it wouldn't benefit for me to talk about it on a media kit. For me, it would definitely be Instagram. I would talk about Facebook, but just like a resume, a professional resume, you would try to find a way to make it relevant. And so it would be relevant to probably a lot of bigger companies, because that's usually where their main platforms are. but I'm not extremely active on Facebook. So it's kind of like, it would be a really quick conversation. Everything would really be pushing towards Instagram. So, so that's kind of how you make the determination. So also, for example, if I was a YouTuber, right? So I would want to talk about, how my platform has grown on YouTube and things like that, which for me, it technically hasn't. It's really just for my blog. But then I would also talk about how my blog is going so far, right? So I've been doing that for a little while now. So even though it's not a really big thing, it's something that I can tell it's up and coming for me. So that's something that I would want to highlight because I am passionate about that, right? And I connect it to my Instagram somehow. So all the same thing. So, again, when we talk about the why, so what is a media kit, right, is a social resume that highlights your platforms and performances, right? Who would benefit from having one of these? So influencers, which if you really think about it, to a degree, we're all influencers in a way. Really, an influencer is someone that tries to influence other people on how to spend their money, and where to shop and things like that. So in a way, we're all kind of influencers, but if that's something that you are hardcore doing, definitely you need a media kit. Or anyone that is really interested in collaborating with other creators, large brands, or trying to participate in affiliate programs, right? So it's actually becoming really important for you to have one, just so you know what to talk about when it comes to like Amazon. When you're trying to do a partnership with Amazon, they ask you like a bunch of questions. So it's like if you don't even know the information or where to grab it from, it may take you a little bit to actually fill out the application. So, definitely make sure at least as a minimum have all of your information in one place, just in case if they have their own version on how to find a way to collaborate with them. So those are the people that would benefit. So kind of in a nutshell, all of us would benefit from having a media kit. And so then why? So again, the why behind it is because just like a professional resume, you want to try to encourage someone to take a look at you and your business. You really want to find a way to stand out. And it's something that, yes, you can invite these folks, whether it's another creator or a large brand or affiliate programs or anything like that, to look at your page. But you're leaving it up to their own interpretation on how to really look at your page. So you having a media kit, you're kind of telling them what to look at, how to look at it. You're giving them behind the scenes information that they can't get by just looking at your page, right? They can see how many followers you have, but they can't tell the demographic or anything like that. So it really benefits you to have a media kit for that way. So, and then how would you use it? So for some folks, this is something that you would just email them or you send them over, the particular platform that maybe you connect it with that person. Like I said, larger brands have like a process on how to send in information, whether it be their own version of an application or they may allow you to attach a media kit to it. Because another great thing about a media kit, unlike a professional resume, which is starting to kind of change a little bit. This new generation has totally changed how professional resumes look, but you can add your picture, you can have like a true bio in there, and things like, other collaborations that you've already had, where in a professional one, old school me, it's very, black and white. There is no form of true creativity with it, on how it looks. There's no true design element to it. There's no pictures. There's none of that. So it's definitely something to where with a media kit, you can kind of show a little bit more about yourself. But I'm going to give you some really good tips on how to design a media kit and how to get it to where you're kind of standing out from the crowd and actually attracting other folks. So hold on. This is totally true. At 9 to 5 seems so interesting. Yeah. Like I've seen definitely with this new this new generation that's coming into the workforce, they have a very interesting, like I would have never put like color on my resume, and layout totally different and very personalized. Yes, and they're even putting their social media handles on their professional resumes now, right? Like they're adding their LinkedIn profile and stuff like that. So like back when we were first trying to get a job, like we would never, well, also social media wasn't really around that time, but I would have always kept them very separate. But like now, as bigger companies are trying to integrate into social media, and that might be how they find you, right? Because I know like for the corporate company that I work for, we go on LinkedIn like hard to recruit. So having, information about your LinkedIn platform, I mean, it can be impressive. So it's definitely changing the game. Definitely changing the game on how professional resumes look nowadays. Okay, so here are a couple tips to create a really attractive and successful media kit. And this is really just to kind of give you some guardrails, if you will, when designing. Because at the end of the day, you can definitely go on like Canva or any of these other media platforms, design platforms, and just you can literally type in media kit and a bunch of examples will come up. So they can kind of give you an idea of what a layout can look like. But I'm going to talk you through kind of what thought process to have in mind when creating one. So the first tip I'm going to give you is embrace the white space. So what does that mean? So if you never really heard of the term white space. So white space is literally like the blank areas on a page, right? So I have my notes here, but like all of this would be considered white space, right? Because I'm not like forcing myself to have so much conversation on here that I type on the whole page. So embrace the white space. So do not feel like you have to cram every statistic from every account, right? Like I said, you don't have to, if you're not active on Pinterest from like a professional standpoint, like don't add it. Like if it's, you just go on there like to use it as a search engine pretty much like I do, don't add it. But if you genuinely are active on there where you have content on there, it might benefit for you to add that information. But I wouldn't add every single platform that your business may be on and, try to highlight every statistic. Girl, the statistics or the analytics that these platforms give you is a lot. They tell you a lot of information, which is good, right? Because it helps you kind of think through what kind of content should you create. Are you reaching your ideal client? It gives you a lot of good background information, but it may not be necessary to add all of it when it comes to your media kit, right? So like, definitely you want to add like your followers, a little bit about their demographics. I would probably talk about your reach count, maybe even how much you've grown in the last 30 days to show like how quick your account is growing and how many eyes are seeing it. And then you can also show when it comes to the amount of people that you reach and then the amount of people that actually interact with you, there's not a huge gap in with it. So your followers are actually interacting with your platform. So that's something to also keep in mind when when describing some of the analytics. Is like, how do all of these numbers make sense to each other? So definitely talk about that too, but don't feel like you have to cram everything. Embrace the white space. Allow some of it to have some good spacing, right? So you don't want all of your words piled on top of each other. Give it some breathing room there. Definitely think about that. And an example, one way to kind of really understand if you've put too much information is actually print it out. Because sometimes when you're designing on a computer or maybe even on your phone, you may not recognize how much you're cramming in there. So printing it out lets you see like, oh man, if I had this in my hands, this would be too much. You can also like understand like your font size. Sometimes like for me when I'm designing, I don't realize like how big the font is when it comes to like when you actually print it. So like definitely make sure that like you're paying attention to that too, like your margins, like all of that good stuff. So I highly recommend printing it to understand like how are you utilizing good clean white space. All right, so tip number 2 kind of goes with this. Allow items to breathe. To breathe. You don't want everything piling on top of each other. Same thing. So, you know, how many things do you have on the same line? How many design elements do you have, right? Like, do you have hearts and stars and zigzags and dots and all of that? Like, how much do you have on there? And again, printing it will let you see like, ooh, this looks busy, right? Like, let me take some of this off to kind of, again, allow it to breathe, because you really want the words to be what's poking out or what's sticking out, and what captures the attention, right? So you want to show your creativity, but try to find it in a very, I hate the word minimalistic, but kind of without any other words to use, like in a minimalistic way, right? So the difference between a professional resume and a media kit is you can add color. Like this page could be in color, but you know, maybe you have it white and then the elements around it are in color that match your brand colors, things like that. But, you know, definitely don't overwhelm it, right? And then also, this is another way, like when you're paying attention to your margins, sometimes if you're trying to be cute, I know for me, sometimes I'm trying to be cute and I have it to where some of the design falls off the page. Well, if your printer isn't a print to edge, it's gonna look odd, right? It's gonna look a little odd because it's gonna have like a really thin margin on the side. And so it just looks like the design element just like fell off. So think about that too. So printing it can show you a lot. And so again, you do want to showcase your creativity, and you want your information to be the star. That's how I originally wanted to say that. I would say your media kit probably should start between 2 to 4 pages. This is probably someone with less than maybe 5,000 followers, because you have a lot of information, but you may not want to include everything just because you're kind of like a micro influencer with that, like 5,000 or less. So, excuse me. So definitely, you know, try to fill up as much as you can, and don't feel another difference between a professional resume and a media kit is I've always been taught that your professional resume should be no more than 2 pages, front and back, right? No more than 2 pages. Well, with your media kit, you do have a lot of information you're trying to come across, and you can even have a cover page, right, girl? Put your picture in there, look really cute, make it look like a portfolio. So having between 2 to 4 pages is actually okay. Now, if you're 10,000 plus, you actually might have 5 to 7 pages. So you might be giving a lot of good information and have to talk through a lot of that as well. So don't, you know, even though I'm saying embrace the white space and allow your content to breathe, you know, that's why you can have more than 1 page, right? So don't feel you have to cram everything. Spread it between 5 to 7 pages if you need to, okay? So then another part when it comes to designing, use fonts that are easy to read. Use fonts that are easy to read. We want to use all of these cute, we want to use all of these cute calligraphy type fonts. I know I do. And it's just, sometimes it's really hard to read. And so you also don't want to use fonts that are too bold, but then you also don't want to use fonts that are too thin, right? Because the thinner they are, then you probably need to make them bigger, and then making them bigger, you're just taking up too much space, right? So think about when you normally type, right? If you go into Word and you normally type, you probably start at, you know, the size 12, maybe 14 max, and your headers are maybe 16 to 18 when it comes to the size of the font. So if the font that you use can't be you can't read it, within those sizes, you probably need to pick something different. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go back to Times New Roman, right? Like, I'm not saying that you have to use that, but use it as a guideline to say, okay, so this font may not be working. Let me try to, and unfortunately, it may go against what your brand kit may be displaying, but it's definitely something to consider when creating this. So so if you wanted to use calligraphy, right, make it to where it's your signature, right? So thank you very much, V Walker, right? And the V Walker is what's in the calligraphy type font. But having it all over the place, sometimes those cursive writings can be so hard to read. They're so cute. They're really cute and really fancy and really give a good design element to it. But don't put them all over the place if it's really hard to read. The last one is use colors sparingly. So again, I did say, use colors to really help you, show your creativity, but I wouldn't use so many colors, right? Like, I wouldn't use 10 different colors, everything from the rainbow. I really would keep it calm. Even if your colors are bright, right? So if you have a really bright pink or magenta or any teal, those really bright teals or anything like that, you can definitely still use them. But I would use them very sparingly. I probably would mostly use them in like the design element versus the font. Because sometimes, you may have found a really, really good font that looks good in 12 or 14 size. But then once you make it Barbie pink, it's so hard to read. So definitely make sure that you pay attention to that. Again, my biggest advice at the end of all of this is print it out. Print it out. And if you were to look at it and someone was trying to pitch to you, what would you think about that? Especially when it comes to colors, if it's so distracting, maybe you just change, instead of changing which color you're using, maybe you change the transparency, the transparency of that particular color just to help fade it, right? So, it can still be within there. It's just a little faded just so it's not standing out so much when it comes to trying to read through a media kit. And especially since we're trying to get through 5 to 7 pages, that can be really distracting and overwhelming. So definitely, just to kind of go over everything, embrace the white space, allow items to breathe, use fonts that are easy to read, and use color sparingly. And those are just the 4 tips that I'm going to share with you today. I'll share a couple extra ones when it comes to my newsletter. So if you haven't had the opportunity to jump on my newsletter or my email list, make sure that you do that now, and so you can get some additional tips and see some examples of what media kits could look like, because I'm going to give you some examples to show you. I'm also going to share with you what items, give you some examples of what items to include and how you can put that into a media kit if you wanted to design it yourself. If for any reason you make the decision you don't want to design it yourself, that is definitely a service that I provide you within one of my packages that I can help you organize and really help your creativity shine when wanting to collaborate and attract other brands. So definitely let me know if that's something for you. Hit me up with a DM and we'll go from there. Thank you for these tips as Stir grows. This is very insightful. Yeah. And let me know if I can help you with that, because it can get overwhelming looking at the statistics and trying to figure out which ones to include. So, like I said, I'll definitely be including that in my newsletter so you can get an example. All right, so that is our mini training for this weekend. So thank you again for being flexible with me and seeing me on Sunday versus Saturday. And I will see you on the gram next time. All right, guys, bye.